So, I have a bit of an update on the 4Gamers 1 Tower build. Some of it's good and some of it's bad, but so here's what I've got so far. I have 3 riser cables going down to 3 graphics cards. I have a GTX 660, a GTS 450, and the venerable HD 6770. Now, the first VM that I fired up, I had a little bit of trouble getting the USB pass-through to work as I expected, but I was, in the end, able to get it working just fine. I had originally planned on just using remote desktop, or even Steam in-home streaming, but remote desktop, while it did have pretty good performance, there wasn't much latency. For whatever reason, I can't use a USB controller through the remote desktop connection. I'm not sure why. I might be able to get that fixed, but it doesn't matter. So Steam in-home streaming did have a bit of latency, more than remote desktop for some reason. And maybe that had to do with the fact that they were virtualized and it was passing through the same NIC that I was using ESXi on. I don't know. Now, in regards to the networking side of things, I had originally planned on having a couple of network cards installed in those PCI slots, but the ones that I was using to test with, which are single port cards, were too old for Windows to recognize. They were real old 3Com things. And the ones that I ordered have not come in yet. So, I was not able to get that to work. I had to pass through the onboard NIC. Then I came across an unexpected problem after I got the first VM working. Now, the first VM was running Windows 10, and it's got this HD 6770 in it. The second one, I fired up with the GTS 450, and although it did recognize it, I could not get the drivers to install, and I found out later on that NVIDIA, in all of their infinite wisdom, blocks you from using their desktop graphics cards in a virtual environment. You have to buy a Quadro for that. I don't quite understand why they would do that, because NVIDIA specifically says Quadros are not for gaming. Yes, you can game on them, but NVIDIA says you can't. But NVIDIA also says you can't use their desktop cards on virtual machines. So, according to NVIDIA, you are not allowed to have a virtual gaming machine. That's super dumb. Anyway, supposedly there are some ways around it. You can trick Windows into thinking it's not virtualized, but I have not had any luck getting that to work yet. I'm going to try some more things later on, but I don't have a cameraman, so I can't really do things while filming. It's extremely hard to type on a keyboard, and most of the time I'm breaking things anyway. I don't want you guys to see that. So, I might, if I can't get it to work, I might be limited to AMD cards, which would absolutely suck, because I don't have a lot of, in fact, I don't have any decent AMD cards that use 6-pin connectors. All of the ones I have that could be considered decent require dual 6-pins, or a 6-pin and an 8-pin. So that rules out a lot of what I need to do, and it's the limitations of the power supply. I mentioned it in the last video. I can't do more than 1 power connector per graphics card. Anyway, if that happens, I might have to pop in my 2 5770s, and I don't know what I'm going to do for the 4th card. I guess we will have to see. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep trying to get the NVIDIA cards to work, because the 660 is a good card. The 450 sucks, but so does the 5770 and 6770s. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I got the VMs to work. I have USB cards in the mail because the plan has changed from remote connections back to connecting at the machine level itself. And I had mentioned in my earlier video that there are not enough USB ports natively on this computer to support 4 separate desktop environments. I did try to pass through a single USB port per VM, but that did not work. I can only pass them through in pairs. So if I had been able to pass through a single USB port, it could have worked, because there are 4, well technically 5 USB ports if you include that one right there. But it's just, I was having so many problems that I just ordered some USB cards. My 4th 1X to 16X has not arrived yet, and with how well the 6770 worked at a 1X speed, I don't think I'm going to bother using my 4X risers, because I don't need the extra bandwidth, and even though they would genuinely be better, the 1X risers have a lot longer cables, which lets me do this sort of janky twin tower build. Originally the cards were just kind of hanging loose inside this case. There's no way that I could attach them anywhere. So with this, I have I don't think that I can, maybe I can get yeah, you can kind of see the risers underneath the cards. And that's really the best that I could do with this setup, to have them actually mounted to something. Having them loose in the case was not necessarily a bad thing, but it just made me uncomfortable when something with a fan is hanging loose. I don't want a cable getting caught in it. I didn't want them shorting out on anything. This just makes me feel better. Now, the 4th graphics card, as this case does not have enough room for it, will have to float free, but I'm much happier having one float 3 than all 4 of them. I don't think we're going to have any problems as far as internet speeds go, even though the virtual machines will all be sharing the same NIC. That is a gigabit Ethernet port, but that is a 100 megabit Ethernet switch. It's fast Ethernet. Either way, splitting 100 megs should get me about 20 megabit per VM, which isn't bad. That's what a lot of America has to deal with, because most people don't want to pay for the higher end stuff. And I actually have 250 megabits per second down for my apartment, which is kind of nice. I actually paid for the extra stuff. So, and the reason 100 actually splits down to 20 is, in reality, it's 100 megabit, but you're only going to get about 95. I very rarely get this thing to actually hit 100, and most of the time it's actually hovering around 86. So I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's just because it's an ancient crappy switch, but not much I can do about that. I think that is pretty much all that I have to say. I've got 3 graphics cards in there. 2 of them I might not be able to use, so in the November PC build I have a 5770 that I can pull out. I have another 5770 there, and beyond that I honestly don't know, because all of my other cards are either NVIDIA cards or they're AMD cards that require, a 6-pin and an 8-pin. That HIS card there is a 4670. I could use that because it has a 6-pin, but then I'm limited to DirectX 10, which is no fun. Most of the games I want to test require DirectX 11 or even 12. I wonder if the 5770 has DirectX 12. I don't think so. I might be limited to DX11. And of course that 6870 also requires 2 6-pins. So that's all I've got to say for you guys. I wanted to give you guys some more substance to this video, but I'm not done yet, and the rest of my parts have not all arrived yet. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Matt from Low Spec Action Squad signing out.